talking about two subjects that are in the range of the demographics and diversity and the changing of the profile of college students. And it really comes down to a simple analysis of the history of the student body in the college scene. The graduate accessibility that has afforded many students the opportunity to pursue higher education is one of the most influential aspects that has aided in the development and in some cases the debatable impacts of the college experience. From the initiation of college establishments in colonial America, many of the students who were fortunate to participate at this time were primarily white male students of rich mercantile families who wished to secure both social and economic legacies within the emerging American nation. Over time, many of these establishments would evolve from colonial colleges to American universities and become the educational benchmark for which all other institutions would be based. Some of these establishments include the 1632 founding of New College of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which would later become famously known as Harvard University, and the Collegiate School of the Connecticut Colony, which would also evolve to the prestigious Yale University. Many of these schools would become transitioned into the new incorporations that would bear names of benefactors who helped forge their legacies amongst the changing and economic fruition of the new American nation. These schools would eventually become more accessible to new students and even include women and minorities during the late 1800s into the early 1900s, as the needs for greater enrollment was necessary for maintaining sufficient operation and institutional survival in a country where funds were quickly becoming scarce. As a growing American nation continued to develop through the eras, the onset of the new century would provide new milestones and new admission policies that would greatly impact the college student diversity, as the onset of global conflict, economies, and industry were major influence on the popularity and value placed on higher learning. The protocols aimed at developing minds among the American populace were developed so they could head up and manage these areas of rapidly emerging importance. Further global development, which included more conflict and economic troubles throughout the world, created new challenges in how colleges would operate in order to meet the needs of a changing society. And although many people in the United States were dealing with the economic troubles due to the Depression, tuition and college enrollment fees continued to rise as the need for more educated personnel was still in high demand. And this was mostly due for industry and political leadership development. And at this time, the social and cultural impacts of a college education were quickly becoming more apparent, with the collegiate ideal that was rapidly sweeping social circles and being recognized as a social significance amongst the population. At this point, many diverse students were beginning to fill the classroom in greater cultural makeup than in previous generations prior. Students with families who valued importance of the American education ideal identified the importance of higher learning programs and quickly sought enrollment for their sons and daughters in order to take advantage of the opportunity higher education could provide. This was not only within the American nation but outside as well, where many foreign students sought the American dream, but also the American collegiate experience. The rise of the student enrollment did include a breakdown of the enrollment rush that was being experienced throughout the country during this time. And the varying eras that followed would continue to see their own growth and experiences in the varying enrollment rates, influenced by the changes which reflected the country's perspective and the social value that affected these enrollments. In the later years, which would reflect the coming of age era from 1970 to 2000, the college setting would see student composition as diverse than any era previous. Rulings in government legislation would make enrollment restrictions due to race unconstitutional and involve other rulings, including those for special needs students, and would quickly become established and allow for even greater diversity in the student populace for any given higher learning institution. New student populations would signify the massive changes and the milestones achieved in affirmative action policies. And general admission guidelines for new school establishments led the way for new institutions with a for-profit ideology, which quickly began to take root in the new marketability for higher education and in the era of commercialization of consumerism. This is where we get into college students, especially in an era of commercialization and consumerism. The popularity and the trend of higher education was quickly becoming an area of social intrigue and status. And for many institutions, this was an aspect that was effectively marketable angle that could be used to ensure the consistent flow of enrollees semester after semester. Consumerism had already become part of the American ideology that deeply and widely reached every facet of American society and culture, and education was becoming the industry that promised greater quality of life and increased social standing within a community. The consumerism involved in the higher learning forum during the Golden Age endorses students on the ideals of greater economic and social status while preserving the recognized missions of research, instruction, and public service. This would quickly be replaced in the modern era, where consumerism would replace these mission ideals with inclusion, exclusivity, and ego gratification. The modern era of the higher education platform would hardly be recognized by many of the initial ideals of the American collegiate inception set by our educational forefathers. With new current developments and utilization that many educational purists claim as education in a box. Certainly the emergence of the for-profit establishments, including those incorporating the online program as the center focus of its instruction, do arouse some scrutiny. However, it differs little from the accreditations from in-house establishments carried out by ill-prepared professors and major institutions who base their grade awards on non-academic influences. This is not to say that the potential for devaluing of the higher education platform does not exist. But what it does do, it creates a situation for profit institutions to meet these critics by producing sound graduates with effective reasoning and logic skills that can rival those students from traditional on-campus platforms. For many of these for-profit schools, we can find many questionable organizations bent on providing commercial-based learning institutions with marketing agents who prey on ill-prepared students looking for instant gratification and quick progress results, with no development on formalized learning. In this case, the analogy proves correct for individual students looking for a quick get-out-of-school-free card without understanding the implications on their academic aptitude or the financial fallout for investing in a questionably or non-accredited institution. These two events are arguably two of the most important developments to the college and university experience through the eras, and how they affect the culture and efficacy of the individual student. In one era, we have the concern over diversity and the inclusion of different races, genders, and cultures into higher learning institutions, in which the status quo considered it a devaluing of the academic ideal, which proved to be on the contrary. What can be argued is the effect of new and emerging online platforms and for-profit establishments, where we meet the same concern over the value and devaluing of higher learning and impacting the overall effectiveness of the programs against traditional methods of instructional conveyance. Thank you for watching.